Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Vice Chair Barnaby and Ranking Member Rayner, um, and the committee. Every time I get a chance to speak regarding certainly public safety efforts, I always say that the most vital and fundamental function of government, first and foremost, is always has to be public safety, specifically law and order, because without that, everything else is not on solid ground. And I always say that within that silo, the most righteous work we could ever do here in Tallahassee is to work to protect our children. Um, Today, folks, we are seeking to create the first ever in the nation statutory criminal definition for grooming and assigning punitive components to it as well. Folks, I look at this as last year we certainly created one bookend in this evil world of preying on our children with the bill that Representative Baker ran and passed, uh, providing for capital punishment for those people that create this. I say all the time, there's the closest thing to the devil in human form are the people that do this. Today, we are essentially creating the other bookend, in my opinion. We have lewd and lascivious behaviors, but candidly, that doesn't go far enough. It says here that it's estimated that in about half of all child sex abuse cases, this abuse is preceded by sexual grooming. Sexual grooming is a predatory process in which a perpetrator selects a victim, gains access, and isolates the victim, develops trust with the victim and other adults in the victim's life, desensitizes the victim to sexual contact and physical contact. Post abuse, the offender may engage in maintenance strategies in order to facilitate future sexual abuse and to prevent disclosure. Why would we not stop this at that level before we violate the child with lewd and lascivious photographs, enticing, and worse yet, actually physically violating that child? We now know how these folks operate, we know what they do, and we know what their intent and their purpose is, and it is evil. And so, folks, today we present this to you and ask you to support this so we can put, as I said, the bookends here and send a message that in Florida, at no point do you come to this state and attack our children, because we are going to take you down, we're going to arrest you, we're going to punish you, and ultimately you will be put to death if you rape a child under 12. Mr. Chairman, that is the bill and there is an amendment.
Questions? Ranking member, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know that there is a strike call, so I don't know maybe if my questions would be better just suited for let's just wait till the strike call. We'll get there. Because I feel like,
Okay.
yeah.
There is an amendment, barcode 233873. Representative Yarkowski, you're recognized to explain your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This strike all amendment makes us a couple important changes. Through working through this bill, we've uncovered some things, and we want to get it right. We're here to get it right, not for any one person, but for this issue. It clarifies, in order to be considered lewd and lascivious grooming, the adult must be preparing and encouraging the minor to engage in any unlawful sexual activity, sexual conduct, or sexual performance. This clarification will help to preclude lawful situations such as sex education instruction, medical treatment that might otherwise be unintentionally captured under the language in the original bill. It reduces the penalty from a second-degree felony to a third-degree felony in order to keep the penalty in line with the offenses that are currently in law. It adds definitions for the following terms to provide clarity as to what conduct is prohibited under the bill: inappropriate sexual communication or conduct, sexual activity, sexual conduct, and sexual performance. And that is the amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Questions on the amendment? Ranking member Rayner, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And Rep. Yarkowski, thank you so much for our conversation. And thank you for your strike call. Want to just kind of get some clarification on some of the terms that you have. When you are thinking about enticing versus preparing, can you kind of share with me what the difference is in that?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ranking Member, thanks for the question. Um, you know, I've done some research on this word preparing because this has come up several times from all kinds of folks that I have tremendous respect for on both sides of the aisle here. And there is no real precedent that I can find other than to say that judges and state attorneys and detectives, ultimately, judges make these determinations every day in the court of law as to is there a pattern of behavior here. We are not looking for isolated incidents, and we're certainly not trying to entrap or put anyone in a corner here. If you are consistently, and I would say at least 2 or more times, doing things that are inappropriate, unethical, in the shadows, if you will, like don't tell your parents,
Mhm.
I could do this and that. We could say this and I'll go do things like that are just not appropriate. And that is a pattern, whether it's physically in person, saying things, doing things, whatever. So, and I would say for enticing, I mean, that is in code and in statute. I mean,
Mhm.
if they're directly petitioning that person, hey, come to my office and we can have sex and no one will know, that to me is enticing, but it which is already covered in law. So I think the preparing part is certainly something that we're governed or that we're looking to get a hold of here in prior to the enticement.
Ranking Member, you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And Rep. Rierkowski, thank you for the answer to that question. And I think when we are looking at lines 25 and 26 of your amendment, you say use the phrase any unlawful. And can you just, I want to make sure that we're reading this correctly. Is it any unlawful sexual activity, any unlawful sexual conduct, or any unlawful sexual performance? Is that your intent to encapsulate all of that, all of those three three areas I just mentioned. So any unlawful sexual activity, any unlawful sexual conduct, and any unlawful sexual performance.
You're recognized.
Yes, and those all of those phrases, if you will, are defined in statute already, and we reference to those. I believe it is part of the packet. If not, I have those definitions. I can give them to you, uh, Vice Chair. Thank you.
Follow-up, Ranking Member?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I think this may be my final follow-up. I don't know. And thank you so much, Rep. Yarkowski, for that answer. And you and I talked offline a little bit. My concern is based on things that are outside of your control and outside of your purview, the word grooming and how that word has been used to attack groups of people. So would you be open to an amendment that would clearly define what grooming is? Because my concern is that grooming has been used to attack LGBTQ families and people. So would you and Rep. Bankson be open to having an amendment and a conversation to make sure that we can get this right and that all children in the state of Florida, all of them, are protected when it comes to sexual predators?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Vice Chair. Ranking Member. The answer is absolutely. We're here to get it right, okay? And we have to hear everything. And I can tell you that through this process last session, one of my best memories was working across the aisle with you all on a very important a bill in this exact silo. To be honest, so absolutely, and I welcome that, and I thank you for your interest in that, and I. Of course, we always have something to learn. Sometimes a teacher, always a student, right? So thank you for the offer.
Question, Representative Bracy Davis, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So I too have questions about the words preparing or encouraging. And if we could, just for clarity's sake, would the handing out of condoms to minors be considered preparing or encouraging, perhaps at a health fair?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for that question. That's actually a great question. And in my mind, the answer would probably be no if it's in a mass situation, people are at an event, parents know they're there and they're handing them out. That to me is not a pattern in succession or otherwise, unless the person is handing it to them and saying, "Hey, remember when we talked about this? Now you can," that would then fall into, but giving out condoms to the masses at an event, to me, that's not grooming. That is a separate situation.
Questions, members? Seeing no questions, we have no public testimony on the amendment. Are there any members wishing to debate on the amendment? Seeing no debate, Representative Yarkowski, you recognize the closing your amendment.
I'll waive close.
Having closed on his amendment for the adoption amendment, signify by saying yea. All those opposed say no. By your vote, the amendment is adopted. Back on the bill is amended. Is there public testimony on the bill? We have some public testimony on the bill. Aaron DePietrio, Florida Family Policy Council, proponent, waving in support. John Arguello, waving in support. John Labriella, Christian Family Coalition of Florida, a proponent, wish to appear?
Yes.
You're recognized.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is John Labriola with the Christian Family Coalition, and we rise in strong support of this bill. This bill does make Florida, as the sponsor said, makes Florida a pioneer in this area by defining the crime of lewd and lascivious grooming. And what it does, very importantly, is it allows the state to step in before that pattern of behavior leads to an actual physical, sexual abuse and assault scenario. So, and highlighting the need for this very important bill, just this week, as many of you probably heard, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office conducted a sting operation where 123 individuals were arrested on human trafficking related charges. And as Representative Yarkowski just noted, most cases of sexual assault, including human trafficking, which I know this committee is very concerned about, it's a growing problem in Florida, start with grooming. So the sooner that we can intervene in these cases, I believe we will help to bring down and finally get our hands around the issue of human trafficking. So again, we thank you for your upvote and commend the sponsors again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. John Harris Mariner, Equality Florida, opponent, wish to speak? You are recognized.
Thank you, Chair and members. My name is John Harris Maurer, and I'm the Public Policy Director for Equality Florida. Child abuse is real and devastating. Our concern is that as written, this bill risks confusing what grooming actually is and potentially trivializes its seriousness. Respectfully, and I heard the sponsor's intent here, which we greatly appreciate, our concern is that as written, the bill does not yet match the sponsor's intent. We would appreciate an opportunity to work with the sponsor, and I apologize I didn't have a chance to approach you before this, to work on some of that language as we've heard a willingness to do so. Our fear is that it could threaten to restrict information crucial to preventing STDs and unwanted pregnancies for minors and threaten to deny them certain access to information. So we look forward to seeing this bill improved and hopefully reach a point that we can change our current opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie Patterson James, representing self, waving in opposition. Jennifer Pritt, Florida Police Chiefs Association, waving in support. Ryan Kennedy, Florida Citizens Alliance, waving in support. Matthew, I'm sorry, Grolski, an opponent wishes to appear. Waving in opposition. Randy McNone, representing self, a proponent of the bill. Barney Bishop, Florida Smart Justice Alliance, wishes to speak. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't be long. I want to thank the representative for bringing this very good bill. Let me just be clear. This is great for Florida to be the first in the nation to do this. But let's also be clear that this isn't about providing information. This is about patterns of behavior. And this is about protecting some of the most fragile people we have in our society, our children. So please be up. Florida's Smart Justice supports this bill, and we hope you will too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Members, we are now in debate. Ranking Member Rayner, you are recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And first, I want to preface my comments. Rep. Rakowski, in this process, the only thing we really have is our word. And one thing I've come to respect about you is that you are a man of your word. You will do the thing and work with us. So I am very hopeful and and know that you will work to make sure that all concerns are allayed. And I appreciate working with you and appreciate that about you in this process. So as I did share with you before committee, I will be a respectful no now. And I kind of alluded to my reasonings in my question, really just about the grooming part. Obviously, y'all know how I feel about protecting children. Please support HB1. You know how I feel about protecting children. However, I just want to make sure that there are no unintended consequences, specifically with the grooming piece, specifically with LGBTQ families and children, and specifically that language having been used by folks to weaponize and criminalize a subsect of our citizens here in the state of Florida. And so I just want to make sure that we can make sure that that information is tight, because there is real grooming that is happening, right? There's real grooming that is having devastating effects on our children, that's having devastating effects on families. But that grooming is not LGBTQ people, LGBTQ families. And I just want to make sure that we're really tight on that language. And so for that, I will just be a respectful no, but I appreciate your commitment to work with me and my colleagues in this process, because that's all we have in this process. And we want to make sure that we get this right. We want to make sure that all of our children are protected. So thank you just for your willingness to do that.
Representative Gottlieb, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Rep. Yarkowski, I want to compliment you on number one, how hard you're working on the bill, and number two, your willingness to come and speak to all of us. You and I spoke at length yesterday. I'm supporting your bill. I do hear the concerns of Equality Florida and some of my other members. I'm going to hear this bill twice more, and I know that you're going to work hard. And I know that you don't necessarily feel that those are realistic the way the bill is written, but perhaps you would consider putting something in there that strengthens their concerns that, sex education, and the dissemination of information, whether it be in public or private, that is not sexually prurient in terms of your grooming, so that we don't encapsulate those individuals who are trying to make us safer and not grooming in the way that you see it. So I look forward to working with you. It was a pleasure last session, and I know we'll get to a great place on this product as well.
Representative Jacques, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Yarkowski and Representative Banks, I want to thank you both for all the work you've put into this bill. I recall the early stages when you were trying to get language together, and we had conversations, and you didn't just have conversations with me. You were reaching out to all sorts of colleagues on both sides of the aisle, especially the legal minds here in the committee, just to try to get that language precise. And I think you've done such an amazing job on this particular issue that takes on the groomers. And here in the state of Florida, we are a law and order state, and you referenced Representative Baker's bill that now brings back the death penalty for these pedophiles. And that's great, but it would be great if they didn't do it in the first place. And this is what this bill does, right? It addresses the grooming to stop it at its roots. And as a former prosecutor, it's always sweet to get justice, but a lot of times I wish I didn't have to prosecute the case at all, because I wish the act didn't occur. And this bill will go towards that to make sure that these heinous acts do not occur. Thank you, sir.
Representative Bracy Davis, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too will be down on this bill. Thank you for your reaching out across the aisle, and I am also looking forward to further conversations. I do think this bill is some of the language is vague and subjective. The words preparing and encouraging concern me. So I'd love to have further conversations about that. While I know this is not question or answer time, I'd love for you to perhaps address in your close, at the risk of being redundant, that there's no intention to affect the curriculum of sexual education. Thank you.
Seeing no other debate, Representative Yarkowski, you are recognized to close on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to say just a couple quick words and hand it to my prime co-sponsor, Rep. Banks. And first of all, absolutely, Representative Davis, that's not the intent here at all. We're not trying to, again, back anyone to a corner and entrap anyone in any of that kind of stuff. That's not the case. And we had extensive conversation with the policy folks on that. I think, and I even read in there that, that was not the intent. Education, arts, things like that. We're not trying to do that. This is a succession of continual activities with one intent. It's not isolated at an event with a prophylactic, or it's not, they showed up here and there was education. That's not the thing. This is people that have a mission, and they are preying on them. And that's what we're trying to stop. And I think Rep. Banks Bernie Jock said it best. I wish I never even had to prosecute these cases. And perhaps the folks that are doing this will now go, I can't roll in the shadows anymore. I can't do any of this stuff, because they know as long as they don't ask a question, they won't cross that line for lewd and lascivious. Now we're taking that out. And Senator Dennis Baxley, one of my mentors and dear friends, always says to me, Rep, sometimes our job is just to turn on the lights, let the Holy Spirit in. And I feel like this is a big part of that. We're turning on the lights in the shadows of where these folks are operating, and it leads to the next thing, and then the next thing, and on we go. And now we're prosecuting a death penalty in my district, in my county right now, of a man raping his 8-year-old daughter. And it's disgusting. So that is what we're trying to stop here in the early phases of this, not to try to attack any virtues or any folks in our community that live a different lifestyle. That's not the point. And I want to say, before I turn it over to Rep. Bankson, that without the help of Commissioner Mark Glass at the FDLE, Deputy Commissioner David Binder, and specifically Special Agent in charge of sex crimes, Mike Duffy, who's sitting back here today, I promise you, you don't want to know what those people have to do. See, and people think of the videos, they think of the images. I promise you, the sounds will make your blood boil. So that is what we're coming after here today, is we're not going to let it get past that stage. And so the devil, the Bible says in the book of John, the devil's job is to rob, kill, and destroy. We rob these kids of their innocence, we kill their spirit, and we destroy their lives every single time this happens, and folks around them. So that's what we're here to do today. That's what this bill is attempting to do. And I absolutely have a willingness at any time to sit down with you all, because I'm here to learn and I'm here to get it right. And that's what we're going to do. And so with that, I'd like to hand over to my co-sponsor, Rep. Bankson, real quick, and then we'll close from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, and thank you, Rep. Yarkowski. This has been a passionate thing for both of our hearts, and we've talked about this. The bottom line is this is about protecting innocence. There's something when this first came up that just rose up inside of me. It's just this clarion call to me, is innocence once lost can never be restored. The trajectory of a child's life, it's like rocket science. We use that phrase. Well, this isn't rocket science. This to me is very clear. And I believe everyone's heart is united in where we want to get with this. And that is to protect those children. And those children at the beginning of their life, there's no limit to their potential. But when someone comes in that has a design that is not for the good of the child, but to use that child for their own prurient nature, it destroys something inside that can never be brought back. You know, there's a famous passage in the Gospels where Jesus was walking among the crowd. And his disciples were there, and little children began to come up, and they were shushing them away. No, don't bother him. Don't bother him. He's busy. And many times children are dismissed in that measure. But Jesus gave us his heart and his example. He says, no, allow them to come here. Very interesting. Two things happened. Number one, he stopped. He laid a hand on them and blessed them. This isn't about stopping people who have the good intent to protect our children through education, through good health, through those measures. But then he gave a warning, which is the heart of God, that said, woe to those who would offend such a little one. Better have that millstone hung around their neck and cast in the sea, but then that they should offend the little one. So on one hand, he's encouraging the blessing of them, the influence of those who are there to protect them. But on the other hand, warning against those whose heart and nature is to destroy them for their own purposes. This to me really is, I like to simplify things. What is the purpose? Thank God for our law enforcement and what they do. And the things that we witnessed are just unconscionable of what they are facing. And this is a tool to allow them to keep this from going to that level that that child is irreparably damaged. So this is about helping the good guys stop the bad guys. And so we want to get this right and make sure the language is clear, because we don't want to catch someone who is truly innocent and who truly cares about children. We do want to stop those whose hearts are bent on devious manners that are against our laws, that are against things that are healthy and wholesome and good. We want to stand up. And so I ask each of you to consider, please, to support this good bill as we go forward.
Thank you. Rep. Yarkowski and Rep. Bankson having closed on the bill. Ben, please call a roll on HB 1135 and announce the vote.
Representatives Abbott,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Barnaby,
Yes.
Brackett,
Yes.
Bracy Davis.
No.
Brannon,
Yes.
Casello,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Gottlieb,
Yes.
Jock,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Blaken,
Yes.
Rayner,
No for now.
Silvers,
Yes.
Stark.
Yes.
Representative Tuck has been excused. Yarkowski,
Yes.
Chair Truno,
Yes.
15 yeas, 2 nays, Mr. Chair.
Show HB 1135 reported favorably.